What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Got some Fluffle duels for you guys to check out, showing you guys a new win condition for Fluffles that is good against a multitude of the decks in the meta. It's not really that new for decks that are already in the meta, but it's definitely new for Fluffles, and it should be a dead giveaway what that win condition is actually going to be just by looking at the Fluffle player's opening hand. You see the Egypt Chain, the Fluffle Owl, the Fluffle Dog. You're like, okay, it's kind of standard Cap G, but then you're like, wait a minute, what are these PKs doing in a Fluffle deck? And that should be a dead giveaway that we are actually going to make an As a Thought turn 1. And it is a little bizarre because I don't generally associate like Fluffles with Exceed Summoning ever. It's not something that I'm just used to seeing, but it is something that is actually quite doable. And this is a TCG legal combo, so you can do this at your locals coming up on the weekend or something like that. You don't need any OCG cards. It's actually done thanks to kind of like the invoke cards. I guess you could say borrowing from a cousin or a distant cousin, like another fusion archetype, but the invoked engine allows you to basically go into another level 4 that Fluffles might have not had access to, and then you can actually pull off that As a Thought thanks to Time Thief or Doer. So you guys will see here. It's a pretty easy play, and the fact that basically every deck that has dark monsters can go into the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardige. Fluffles obviously have dark fusion monsters, so right here you're just simply going to link summon into your Alistair the Meltdown Invoker. Then you can simply activate fusion, or Fright for Fusion, I believe he activated. Go into Fright for Sheep. Boom, this is already your Bardige on board, but you do want to also be able to get your Alistair into the graveyard. That's where your other level 4 is going to come from. You are going to have to fusion summon a couple of times, so you're actually going to have to fusion summon your Caliga. This is the invoked monster, the dark one. It's like a really good stun card, but you wouldn't want to leave it on the field. Like, even if you had Monster Reborn, you wouldn't want a Monster Reborn this, because then you wouldn't be able to OTK your opponent during their turn. And the way that you're summoning this, because some of you guys might be like, well, how did you summon this, Cap? Don't you need, Alistair the Invoked to like fusion summon any of the evoked monsters? Not actually, because this guy right here, the Alistair Link monster, counts as the original Alistair when it's in the graveyard. So you can use invocation and you can simply go for your level 4s, and basically you can summon your As a Thought, and it is searchable off of the Alistair Link monster. So it's something that you're obviously going to be able to get on the field. Now, I'm not sure why this Sound My Great player actually ended up scooping. I mean, he had Rage, so the chances of him actually getting OTK'd should have been pretty low. He could have just pitched a Foxy from his hand. He could have just set Rage. He could have just popped one of the monsters. And, I mean, he would have been able to just get Foxy back, hypothetically, from Circle, even if he wanted it. I think the right play would have been to get Spinny, but not exactly sure why he scooped. But I think he just saw Azathan and got a little bit of PTSD. This is even better, this duel right here, because PTSD, that's what I meant to say. In this duel, you're going to see him basically use kind of like no resources to get the play, or at least in the grand scheme of things, because, you obviously start with 5 cards. This is thanks to cards like Toy Vendor, getting a Toy Vendor in the graveyard, using Fluffle Wings to just draw. Fluffles have always had a ways to amass a lot of resources, but then when they have to consolidate those resources, it's not always the greatest thing. However, this gives them a really good stun turn 1 play, and then from there, they can just kind of use the rest of their resources for fusion summoning. Things like Call by the Grave obviously make this more consistent, and you guys can see that we have established the As a Thought as soon as the Redoer comes back, and he still has, well, let's check this out, 5 cards in hand with the obvious, the As a Thought play on board, and he really just has enough to, like, continue fusion summoning during his next turn. Fluffle Dog, the second he summons, that's going to be another plus, but you really don't have to worry about defending yourself when you have the As a Thought, and he had a Call by the Grave to push through some hand traps. His opponent is playing, I don't know what this is, some type of weird Magnet Warrior deck, maybe it's Doki Doki Magnets, but honestly, doesn't matter. He's just going to try to push for game here. Doesn't even need to commit that much more to the board, because the Fright for Kraken does have the ability to attack twice. So he really didn't need to, use that many more resources. Still had a hand trap the entire time, and that's just, it's kind of cool. I don't know how much longer this play is going to be legal in the TCG, so enjoy it while you can, Fluffle players. This might be some spicy tech that maybe, I guess, makes you want to consider picking a deck up again. Let's pause for one quick second so you guys can see what the deck is looking like. All right, so this is what the deck looks like on paper, and really, it's not that different than a standard Fluffle build, and I think that's the reason why you see so many of these As a Thought decks, is because you don't really have have to incorporate all that much, but you get such a powerful turn one play. You're used to seeing, you know, obviously a couple of PK cards. You got your Silent Boots. Just hopefully you don't draw it. You probably shouldn't, but you got your one Phantom Knight monster. You've got your, you know, your Shade Brigandine as your level 4. No other traps in this deck, so it's always kind of a live card. And then you have your rank up Phantom Knight launch spells that gets you into Azathoth. But other than that, it's just like the Invocation. That's kind of like the only thing. And Invocation can technically be used to summon your Frightful Link. I mean, your Frightful fusion monsters. So it's not even all that bad if you like don't have the play, or if you're going second and you have, you know, like Invocation, you hard druids, you can use this kind of as a substitute polymerization. We see prank kids do this all the time, but when it comes to the extra deck, you really don't have to make all that much adjustments. Yes, you're going to have to run the 2 Exceed monsters because, you know, these are the cards that go into each other. And then it's just, you know, a small little invoked package of your Alistair Meltdown Link. And that's fine because, you know, even when you're going second, this just serves as a legitimate, just like Link monster. Like usually you see people go for Lamphalinkus when it comes to Fluffals, but a lot of the Fluffal monsters are like different attributes. They have so many different weird attributes in the deck, so it's not really that big of a problem. And then lastly, you're just running the Caliga because it does work with the turn 1 combo. But interesting to see Fluffals just make a little bit of adjustments and have such a powerful going first play when you really don't think of Fluffals having much if you force them to go first.